Hi, this is a summary of Chapter 2 from your textbook. Chapter 2 is about the descriptive analysis. That is the most fundamental knowledge you should have before you enter this particular course. However, when we are using the statistic in the analytic world or business analytics world, the process and the purpose of the knowledge is more important than the mathematical knowledge itself. Chapter 2, as well as in Chapter 3, both chapters talk about descriptive analysis. And these two chapters, I would say, among all the 8 chapters we have in this textbook, are the two most important chapters you want to be a master of them. Therefore, the assignment and the project that we design for this course are basically coming out of these two chapters. From my personal experience and professional advice, I would say as an entry-level business analytic personnel, most likely 60 to 80% of the time, the job you will be doing involve the skills and the charts and the process described in these two chapters. Now, one of the most important jobs described in this particular chapter, which is not capitalized in the title of the chapter, is data processing. Data processing, sometimes people call this data preparation or data massaging, data cleaning, or some of these terms that people like to use. Essentially, it is a job that describing as the picture shows that you have different type of data. You want to arrange the data in a way so that the data can be um, summarized and simplified and present in a way that the regular people will be able to understand. So the process of taking the data from the left-hand side of the slide to the middle cloud and try to arrange them into more like a data storage, that process is data preparation. Data preparation deal a lot with the quality of the data, and in here that we see that there is a slide titled Metrics for the Analytics Ready Data. It's essentially telling you if you want to consider to do a good job of reporting and analysis of data, it is essential to get your data following all these criteria and which criteria is more important than for the job you're doing depends on the project. And but it will be a good idea to have a laundry list here so that in the future, if you have a job of cleaning data, you can take a look at the list and find out what you need to do in order to prepare the data to the desired format. So these criteria including the reliability, accuracy, accessibility, privacy issue, richness, consistency, timeliness, granularity, and the relevancy issue. And data can be classified into different category. From this particular slide, I will emphasize on one side of the category. That the side of category is the structured data category. Now, if you look at, there are two major category of data in the structured data. One is called categorical, the other is called numerical, and these two data type has a significant implication on the report that you are building. A lot of these misunderstandings when you are trying to use a lot of these modern data visualization tools or chart building tool such as Excel that is coming out of this misunderstanding of data type. Let me give you an example. For example, I believe most of you have experience using Excel to build a bar chart and to build a pie chart and so on and so forth. And one of the problems you encounter is under internet, you go into a YouTube tutorial. It seems like that the teachers or the instructor uh, copy or highlight the data and throw that into a wizard of the Excel, and the chart is automatically formed. But when you are trying to do the same thing, you encounter problem. The chart is not showing up in the way that you desire to. The line become bar, or the bar has too many bar, that sort of situation, or even that the chart cannot be created. Now, one of the typical problem is the data type that you provide for the chart building tool is not correct. So it's essential to understand what data you're providing to the software. Um, for now, I will emphasize that the categorical variable, usually we call them dimension in data analytics. Numerical variable, we call them measurement in the data analytics. Both these two type of variable, once you understand it, you will be able to understand the nature of the chart. Later in our technical tutorial, you will learn some of the terminology one more time, and hopefully you can grasp the idea of how to identify dimension for analysis, how to identify measurement by looking at the numerical uh, data in your data set. One simple example can be presented here is, say, for example, you go into a retail store. The retail store worry about the sales. So every day that you have transaction that sell people product and service, and those sales, because it's represent in monetary dollars amount, and those are numerical data. It's a typical numerical data become a performance measurement. On the other hand, if you want to figure out some of the detailed analysis or drill down of your data, of your sales in this particular case, you can identify categorical variables such as gender, coming to your store, how many men and female, or you can identify geographical region. Geographical region or gender, those are categorical data. And categorical data now become something we call dimension, used to drill down or slice and dice your data. Data preparation, data processing, or anything that we talk about in terms of data cleaning is actually the most tedious and but very essential in business analytics. And according to one report that I read last year, 2019, the private consulting firm did a survey about a typical company in their IT department or in their big data mining department. What percentage of job they spend in different type of data science work, including data preparation, including model building, including chart building, report writing, all these jobs that are spread out in the organization. It turns out that 60% of the time of their employee spend on data preparation. So you know how important it is to do a data preparation. As a matter of fact, this become a major job entry skill because when the data is ready for analysis, our software tool today can easily build all these reporting chart for you. So the skill that can process the data better become important. So the data preparation officially from the textbooks, they have defined four different category of job: data consolidation, data cleaning, data transformation, data reduction, that is. And it is described as both a science and art because a lot of time that a good creative employee can process the data in a different way to generate actually different result. Data processing go through stages, and this particular slide give you a very good process view of how do you clean data. And we all know in a lot of this quality control process is more important than the outcome. The simple idea of quality control is if the process is monitored well, the outcome will be good, right? So the discipline like ISO standard all focus on process instead of outcome measurement. So I would recommend take a deeper look at all these process and take a look at all these terminology they use in the data cleaning process to be part of your learning. Very quickly, let's take a look at each one of this category in the process that we described earlier. There is the first step is usually data consolidation. You take the data from multiple sources, try to put them together. Second process is data cleaning. Try to make sure that you understand the data, and that is where our descriptive analysis can come in to place to identify missing value, identify outlier, eliminate noise, and so on and so forth. The next process is to do data transformation. There is a terminology here says normalize the data. It is true and false. Data transformation involves many jobs, including make sure the data is more accessible, make sure that the data can be accessed at a different level of granularity. Sometimes you need to create new derived and calculate result number as well. For example, if you have like a daily sale, you want to get the number for weekly and monthly sale. In this process, you can come up with a multiple way of presenting your data. Or if you have in your data set only the unit of sales and unit price, you need to calculate the total amount of sale. You have to do that job in the data transformation process. And after that process, you will go to the process called data reduction. The data is usually presented in a more than enough to use format, and you want to reduce the data so that the person performing the reporting job can actually do a easier job. So all these jobs together become the process of data preparation. Again, because our recording is only a summary, I will not go into detail of how you do each one of this process, and I recommend at least from the slide, read each one of this category and the recommended method. And one of the recommendation I will have here is that you might want to think about what kind of tool can be used to do this data preparation process. In the previous slide, you see that in the first category, say data consolidation, you need to use SQL language. So you know that the SQL language will be an essential skill for you to do this job. But the rest of the other process and task does not involve the textbook did not actually recommend the technology. Think about which technology is fitting to each category and try to learn those. Become your essential skill in the category of job called business analytics. Then the textbooks move to the um, description or argument about the role of statistic in the whole picture of business analytics. If you recall in chapter one, as well as in our assignment, that we tried to categorize the business analytic into three different type. And since we're in the early stage talking about descriptive and predictive analysis, it will be a good idea to look at what kind of basic principle and concept we can use in business analytics. There are two different category of analytic. Most of the modern tools that you heard about, tableaus or Excel chart, even the pivot table that we talked about earlier, are falling into the category of OLAP, online analytical processing. And online analytical processing is a very nice word and very professional. It's a jargon, but essentially, again, as I probably recommended already, imagine that it will be a very sophisticated pivot chart analysis. So if you can master the essence of pivot chart, you'll be able to do OLAP analysis. And OLAP analysis is very fundamental to the descriptive analysis as well as some predictive analysis if you can do it very well. On the other categories called the statistic knowledge or skill, you have two different types. One is descriptive, the other is inferential. Inferential statistics will use that more in the predictive and prescriptive analysis. It's actually in on this particular slide showing up on more in the middle to the right part of the category, classification. So you know that in the earlier chapter we'll focus more on the descriptive analysis or descriptive statistic in our learning. And as far as our technology selection, we are using SPSS in this particular course, used as a tool for the descriptive analysis or statistic presentation or processing. And I will try to, in this particular semester, build some new tutorial that may not be used in the assignment, but will be used in the future classes using Python as a tool to perform statistic as well, to make this course a little bit sexier and fancy. Next, when we get into the detail of descriptive statistic, and we get into some of this familiar name you probably hate when you are a student of Math 101 or Math 121, uh, Introduction to Statistics course. And we will not get into too much detail of it. And in particular, don't remember all these formula because they're not important in the learning of this class. More important thing is you have to understand the implication once you have this number. The other reason I've said well the formula is not important is because the software will be automatically calculating all these statistics for you. So you don't need to remember the formula. Say, for example, on this particular slide, you learn there are two statistics you can calculate from any software tool, uh, including Excel, median and mode. And you have to understand the median, mode, and the mean. You have to understand the implication of each one of these statistic. For example, if you want to look at a pattern or the of the say U.S. Income distribution or which measurement is more accurate to reflect the United States income for average citizen. In this case, if you answer that mean, then you're wrong. The correct answer should be median. Looking at the median income is more important than looking at the mean income. A simple answer to that question is that if you have learned statistics well, you know that the mean value is usually distorted by outlier. In this case of U.S. citizen income, your number will be distorted by the extreme rich people in the United States. So their income will kind of disguise the true income in the regular population of United States. In the typical software application we have today, using a simple function of descriptive statistic, you can easily get not only the mean, median, mode, you can also get the dispersion, range, and skewness, and so on and so forth. Oh, I jumped too much forward. Let me move to the right slide. We can easily create a plot called the box plot. And the box plot is interesting because it presents the idea of a mean and median and quartile. And these information will give you a better understanding about the distribution of your data to see if your view toward the population or the data is not skewed or biased toward to one direction or the other. Again, we are not doing a statistic class, so I will stop. I will not elaborate the purpose and importance of each one of the statistic. But with a tool like SPSS or Excel, you can easily draw these type of chart. And for those of you who are interested in finance, you will probably pay a little bit more attention to this box plot because this will be used a lot in the technical analysis in the financial, especially in investment. So if you're on the stock market, understanding the nature of the box plot and understanding the nature of this range of the quartile and range of confidence level will have a strong implication of the timing of when or what price level you want to buy and sell your stock. But again, I'm not elaborating too much. Just to give you a sort of like opening statement, then you can dig a little bit more if you are interested in that direction. So again, there are other measurement, and you don't need to remember the formula, but it will be a good idea to understand the nature, to dig a little bit deeper when you are really getting on the job. But for our classes, understanding all these terminology and be able to perform and work on your assignment to generate these chart and statistic will be a good enough task. And some of the fundamental about how distribution is affecting your judgment or a certain phenomena will be important. And our tutorial, our technical tutorial, use Google Spreadsheet as well as SPSS to do a lot of job from the environment I'm selecting. But if you are more uh, classical, traditional, you might want to take a look at the textbook example. They typically use Microsoft Excel as the tool. Believe it or not, most of the time that in our job environment, and I mentioned this as a professional consultant in the United States. I would say the most popular tool used in business analytics is not Tableau, is not the Oracle, is not Microsoft fancy tool, Power BI. Instead, the most popular tool used in the United States for business analytics is Excel. So everybody uses Excel to write report, so the fundamental or some of the basic cases study, you can find that in our textbook. And of course, a lot of these how to do something in Excel is also available in um, a public outlet like YouTube. You can easily find some of the teaching tutorial in YouTube to show you how to do a certain thing. So I would not elaborate too much to build another tutorial to compete with them. After you learn descriptive statistic, and in our class, we're going to be learning another important tool from the category of inferential statistical regression. And you probably have already learned simple regression already from your statistic class. And we will do a little bit more understanding about the nature and the purpose and how do you apply regression in different scenario. And even though regression is usually classified under the category of inferential statistic, used more not in the earlier stage or the initial stage for describing data, but it still can be used to describe some of the basic relationship and nature of data. On your textbook, there is a pretty much like a review of your statistic knowledge, or for those of you who are not really getting to the regression at this point, it will probably be a good reading material for you to understand more about the basic regression. In our project as well as our future assignment, I'll try to give you a more like professional's advice about how do you look at regression. What we will do for regression is, again, not looking at the formula, but we will look at when you are facing a set of data, how do you use those data to build regression model, and how do you make interpretation based on the regression model. So interpretation of the result will be our focus instead of learning the fundamental knowledge of statistics. From the perspective of interpretation, these terminologies such as R square, p-value, MSD, MSE, MAD, and so on and so forth will be discussed one more time when we are doing the discussion. And there are assumptions about and some you can over interpret a particular data set, and we will also talk about that part of uh, the interpretation of the data. The fundamental of I would say descriptive statistic is actually used for business report, and the business report is probably the most fundamental thing we do in a business environment. And there is a keywords here in the process for us to understand from the slide. The keywords here is called the ETL. It is a process of extracting, transfer, and loading data. It's essentially it's talking about the entire data preparation process. It's described also at the very last item on this particular slide here. And business report traditionally will be classified or used as typical is called a metric management report. And in a certain from a certain perspective, most of the accounting report can be considered this type of report because you will be reporting your sales, the total sales amount, your cost of sales, the and so on and so forth. So all these measurement using KPI is called the metric management report. In modern day times, it's more popular that we see the second type of report. It's called a dashboard type of report. Dashboard type of report has actually two features or two characteristics. One is that it's not describing here, but one is usually dashboard is just like your car dashboard. It's a real-time report. So real-time is one important thing about a dashboard. The second is that the dashboard report is usually graphic oriented. It's visualized using chart like a gadgets or bar chart or a line chart. So using chart and real time generate this concept of dashboard report. And also a lot of tools that we talked about, such as Tableau, is falling under this category of dashboard report builder. And there is no such tool that it can automatically generate the third type of report called the balance scorecard. And if you are a management student, you probably heard about this particular method as a balance scorecard performance measurement. Balance Scorecard is actually a book, a very popular best-selling book in the 19, I believe it's the 1980s. And So the idea is that when you try to evaluate the company, you are not going to be evaluating the company from one measurement, not measured by the profit or by only the sales. You have to measure by the efficiency, the sales, the human resource, the financial performance, and so on. So many different dimensions. If you put all these dimensions into a comparable chart, that chart is called the balance scorecard. Balance scorecard, instead of putting this as a separate category of the report, I would say it's a more organized type of dashboard report. With that saying, that I would say that the balance scorecard itself is more like a disciplinary of selecting KPI combined with the visual tool of dashboard report. You have a much better understanding of the operation, organization, business, whatever you try to perform. Say, for example, we can build a balance scorecard report for the, say, coronavirus, monitoring. That would be a good example. So you will not only report a case, you can report the case, um, the death rate, region, and in a graphical format. So that will be more balanced and overall comprehensive report. For those of you who are interested in dig uh, deeper into this topic, I would recommend to read a little bit about balance scorecard. If you require that additional learning, then please email me or send me entry in discussion forum. I'll try to find an article instead of an entire book for you to read about balance scorecard. So the dashboard tools or dashboard report is depending a lot on these data visualization tool. And so this become an essential skill you have to learn in data analytics or business analytics world to use this tool to make the data more visualized, more visible, and more eye-catching in that regard. A cliche says one picture is more than 1,000 words, and that is what we are trying to achieve here. And on the textbook, you will see a lot of these classic data visualization example, including one of those everybody's favorite, very old from the 19th century that chart talking about Napoleon's army going from the France invading Russian and end up in losing all their soldiers. So this pink line and versus black lines are the going to Russia and coming back route. Very nice and very informative. If you look into detail, you can even imagine how harsh this environment was that when the army was trying to invade Russia. This particular slide show you a classification or a taxonomy of what kind of chart you're going to be using. And this to me as a practitioner, not as your professor, but as a person that advise and consult on the business of a dashboard report building is one of the things I recommend that you keep it somewhere as your out of pocket tool. So next time when your boss asks you to do the job of building a chart or report, take a look at this particular picture and decide on what kind of data visualization you want to generate for your boss. Because each one of those data visualization has different power to explain or to represent data. And of course, you see this example, we already watched the entire tech talk about how nice and how powerful it can become using a data visualization tool to explain data. And this is another interesting thing I will say, I'll introduce to you that the what we call magic quadrants on the right side of this particular slide show that the company that is involved in the data visualization business and the familiar Tableaus and Click and Microsoft Power BI is on upper right corner. It's called the leader quadrant in this particular picture. And Magic Quadrant is another thing, even though it's not essential to the business analytic, but Magic Quadrant present or actually built by this consulting company called Gartner is very important actually for all this business required to use any kind of software. And Gartner become a software recommendation sort of like authority for many years already. So the next time your business, your boss want to select a software, you might want to look at the category of the software that presented by Gartner analysis. Say for example, if you want to look for an office software or the cloud solution or something, go to Gartner.com or search in Google, search for Magic Quadrant in the cloud solution. You will find a very good recommendation about what are the leaders, what are the challenger, and so on and so forth in that particular category of software. So in addition to learn some of the data analytics skill, I will recommend to be familiar with this company called Gartner and learn a little bit more about their Magic Quadrant for software recommendation. So that is pretty much I want to summarize in this video clip, and of course a lot more rich information and material can be found either from the slide I'm sharing with you, as well as the textbook if you really want to get into the textbook. There are a lot of interesting cases you can look at from the textbook to learn a lot of example actually to show you how to look at the data, prepare data, and generate a non-biased judgment for decision making using simple descriptive statistic. Right? Thank you. I'll talk to you in another summary.